As we gather to celebrate July 4th, join us this week on Scots in Us as we reflect on the relationship between the US and Britain. During this year's New York Tartan Day celebration, the American Scottish Foundation held our annual Tartan Day Observance at Bryant Park. Closing remarks were made by Charles Lord Bruce, direct descendant of Robert the Bruce. His remarks were a great reflection of the long-standing relationship between the two countries. And so now, join us on the fountain terrace of Bryant Park.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Presiding Officer, Cabinet Secretary, and Secretary of State, it's a great honour and a great privilege to be invited to speak today, and I'd like to thank the organising committee of this wonderful event and the American Scottish Foundation. Cherie, my wife, and some of our extended family from the United States are here in force. It's my very first Tartan Day, Tartan Week, and I'm so delighted to be here. Well, you've heard the immortal words of the Declaration of Arbroath. You got the abridged version of it, but the really important essential line is this: that it's not for glory, nor for riches, nor for honour, but for freedom alone that we fight, that no honest man gives up except with his life. And that phrase, that essential clause of the Declaration, was the seismic event of Scottish history and has reverberated down through the centuries, like the seismic event this morning at 4.8 on the Richter scale, probably slightly greater, because 300 years later, in 1638, actually we have the National Covenant, which some of you will have been to Edinburgh, to Greyfriars Churchyard, and seen where it was signed. And that again was a really important event to express the freedom to worship, as we were Presbyterians, and not to have our religion interfered with. And it was those ideas that entered into the folk memory of people who left Scotland at that time, and over the next 150 years crossed the Atlantic and settled in this country, in New Jersey and Virginia. We have, I think, some Virginians here today, but plenty from New Jersey. Eastern New Jersey, where the Scots went. And so when it came to the American Revolution, the ideas that they had brought with them was so deeply embedded in their folk memory, from the Declaration, from the National Covenant, gave them the courage to take up arms against the colonial tyranny of George III and his government, and then gave them the inspiration, the ideas, to sit down and to compose the Declaration and the Constitution and other important documents which followed. And as you've heard, we believe that over half the signatories had some connection with Scotland, whether they had Scottish ancestry or, possibly more importantly, had been taught by Scottish professors at the universities such as Princeton and the College of William and Mary in Virginia, who had brought with them the ideas of the Scottish Enlightenment at that time. The contemporary writers like Francis Hutcheson, Adam Smith, David Hume, those ideas of how to create a civil society and how to govern effectively entered into America at that time and become a really important part of the phraseology of your Declaration. Thomas Jefferson himself, who attended the College of William and Mary and was taught by Professor Small from Aberdeen University, said, "I learned more from Professor Small than anyone else." And as you know, Jefferson gave his library to the Congress, the Library of Congress, which was full of all the books of the Scottish Enlightenment. And within 20 years of the Declaration, in 1794, there's a Scotsman who paints George Washington, the Athenaeum painting, which is now obviously everywhere. It's on your banknotes, the engraving of that painting. So the Scots not only helped to write the most important documents, they helped to create the cultural identity of this country. And in 1814, Jefferson himself publicly considered how to create an American Academy of Letters that would be distinct from the English writers from the past. And he chose as an avatar for American writers none other than Robert Burns. And you have in Central Park, we saw yesterday, the beautiful monument raised to Burns in 1871, which was attended by thousands of people who watched it being unveiled, sitting opposite Walter Scott. And I think if you look around this city, and I know the American Scottish Foundation is working on this incredibly important project, there are many buildings in the city, apparently over 100 buildings. I don't have enough time this week to count them all and see them all, that were built either by Scots for their own purpose, like Gracie Mansion or Carnegie Hall, or built by Scottish architects, like, or designed by Scottish architects, like the Empire State and Penn's Station and the City Hall. And I think I just would like to end on this note to congratulate the American Scottish Foundation for seeking to identify that legacy, that very permanent legacy of the city that we have contributed to. And I'd like you all very much to support this initiative, if you like, as the legacy of what we have done and the legacy of this week. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week for this edition of The Scots in Us. On behalf of the American Scottish Foundation, I send you warm wishes for a wonderful and safe July 4th weekend.